In a previous video, we were finally able to get this Cub Cadet mower working again, and it turned out to be a maintenance issue requiring a slight valve adjustment. But after getting it started, we got to see that it wasn't the only issue that it had. Once it was running, I activated the self-propel only to see that one of the drive wheels wasn't spinning like it was supposed to, and I hate to tell you, but there's a bigger problem with this mower. What's up everyone, and thank you for stopping by. Today's project is this Cub Cadet lawnmower, and the problem is that one of the drive wheels isn't working like it should, and the mower is really tough to push around even when the engine isn't running, making it pretty difficult to push around the yard. Now, I'm going to try and repair this mower, however, it may not be the exact repair you need to make to yours. We'll explore other options later in the video. Now, we're only going to mention what these other options could be. We don't have enough time to look into them, but if you need more information on these options, you're welcome to ask as many questions as you need to. If I remember the story correctly, my friend was driving through his neighborhood and saw this mower on the curb. I believe they drove the rest of the way home and then walked back to the mower, at which point they pushed it all the way back home. That's when they noticed that it was incredibly tough to push, as though one or more of the wheels was stuck. And he was right, it's really tough to move around, but if you lift the rear up so the drive wheels are off the ground, it's much easier to push. More than likely, we'll be able to find the issue when looking at the drive wheels, especially the one that's wobbling. The first thing I want to do is start the engine so I can show you the problem, but before that, always confirm there's enough oil in it and there's no gasoline from a leaking carb. Once we confirm that, we'll then start the engine. So as you just saw, it's pretty bad. By the looks of it, more than likely this wheel needs to be replaced, but we won't know that until we take it off for an inspection. So after taking it off, we can see what the problem is. Most of the center section of this wheel is missing, and what's left is broken. Without the middle section, there's nothing keeping this wheel from spinning correctly. Now, by the looks of it, it appears the previous owner tried to fix it by using some 2-part epoxy. Now, it might have worked, but for some reason, they were really stingy with it. I guess they wanted to make it look like it hadn't been fixed, but it wasn't even visible, so who knows why they used such a small amount. Now, I'm not going to hold back when fixing this wheel, so I'm going to use some JB Weld reinforced epoxy. I'm also not going to hold back on the amount I'm going to use either. Now, a new wheel from an online seller is about $35, while half a stick of reinforced epoxy is only $3, so I think this fix is going to be well worth it. Now, when mixing this type of epoxy, I always try to wash off any oils that might be on my hands and make sure they're dry. Also, make sure you knead this material thoroughly until it gets to a single gray color. Now, once I'm done mixing the epoxy, I'm going to force it into the ridges or fins in the plastic, which I also cleaned and air dried before starting this repair. I have to work fast once it gets to this point because I want to get this wheel back on the mower. That way I can be assured that the center section will be lined up with the bolt that it spins on. Now, it doesn't have to be pretty, it just has to be functional. So I'm going to give it about 30 minutes before I come back to see how it's doing, and in the meantime, I'm going to clean and lubricate the wheels so it'll be easier to push this mower around. Now, this will also give me an excuse to see why this mower is so tough to push. And before you ask, no, it's not necessary to clean the wheels, but it makes the mower look a lot cleaner, especially if the rest of it is already clean. I wouldn't spend too much time doing this job, but I can assure you these wheels haven't been cleaned in a very long time. Now, the front wheels apparently have some sort of bearing in them, so I'll lubricate them as well. I'll also take this opportunity to lubricate the pivoting points for the adjusters. I typically use lithium grease most often because it's very convenient, but you can use whatever you want. As for the bearings, I'm going to use a thinner lubricant, that way it can penetrate further into it. Now, having bearings on the front wheels is where some of that extra money you paid for is at, but unfortunately, these bearings weren't in the rear wheels as well. So I just got done lubricating the front wheels, and since they both have bearings in them, I didn't see any sort of issues that would be causing our problems pushing this mower. That means it might be in the right drive wheel instead, but after taking it off the mower, I don't see anything wrong with it. That means the problem isn't with the wheels, but with the self-propel system. There's only one problem though. When pushing this mower forward, the system is disengaged, so it shouldn't be spinning the drive line at all. However, as I tried to turn the drive gear, I noticed that it's not spinning smoothly. In fact, it's tough to turn, and it feels like it's catching on something. That means I need to remove it and look at the ratcheting mechanism and see if there's an issue. Unfortunately, to remove the bolt, you'll have to keep the gear from turning, otherwise you'll just turn the drive line. Now, you don't need to use an impact, but it sure helps. So the way the backside of this gear is designed, it allows a dowel pin to slide while being turned in one direction, but engage when turning the other direction. But it looks like this one isn't sliding like it should, so it's always rotating the drive line when the mower is being pushed around instead of freewheeling. That means we need to lubricate it, and the mower self-propel won't be fighting back when it's being pushed around. Once we put it back on, we'll see if it spins freely in one direction and locks up and turns the drive line in the other direction. It looks like it's working just like it should now, so it looks like that was the reason why this mower was so tough to push. That means we can finally install this wheel and then check out how the other wheel's doing. So it looks like it's lined up pretty well, but the real test will happen once we get the mower back on the ground. But before we put the wheel back on, I'm also going to lubricate it. Now that I know what it looks like behind the drive gear, I should be able to lubricate it without taking it off this time. For this type of repair, I think it's spinning quite nicely, and if it breaks again, I'll use the other half of the epoxy that I've got left over, but I might have to improve on how I use it. Now, if it breaks one more time after that, I might have to consider either retrofitting a wheel I have on hand or buying a new wheel. The next thing I want to do is look at the battery pack for the electric starting system and see if there's a reason why it's not working. The first thing that I noticed is that the battery pack is very unique, which means it'll be very expensive to replace. The second thing that I noticed is that one of the tabs has broken off of it, and that would explain why it's not working, but after putting my meter on it, it turns out it's definitely dead and will need to be replaced. Unfortunately, the site I ordered my parts from doesn't carry this battery pack anymore, so that means if I want to get it working again, I'll have to use a different type of battery. In the meantime, I want to try and use my jump pack on it to see if the starter still works. Fortunately, the starter still works, but I didn't have the choke on. Now this time, I'll use the jump pack on the battery leads and see if we can get it started using the key. Unfortunately, for some reason, it's spinning slower now than when I had the wires connected straight to the starter. Just to make sure the engine still starts, I'll use the pull rope instead. So it started just fine with the pull rope, although it seems to be a bit cold-natured as it doesn't want to be off the choke so soon after starting. Now this time I'll just use the key start and hopefully it starts this time. So it finally started, but it's still a little slow to crank. Now it could be my jump starter pack is low on power, or I'm losing power somewhere in the wiring. Either way, at least we know the key start should work with a brand new battery, and that the self-propel is working better than ever. So another option as to why this mower was so tough to push is that the bushings that the drive axles pass through are badly corroded and need to be cleaned and lubricated. This unfortunately requires the transmission to be removed, which is not an easy repair to do. Fortunately, we didn't need to do that, and as you can see, this mower easily rolls forward and backwards with very little effort. So my question is, would you even bother fixing the key start on this mower? Now you know the starter works and that the wiring is all there. We just need to replace the battery and find a charger for it. I think I can find a battery for about $25 and a universal charger would be around $15. But to be honest, I don't know if it's even worth the effort. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate your time here. Please feel free to ask me any questions, and I hope to see you in the next video.